Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere hot, dusty, and absolutely terrifying. And no, it's not your cousin's beach wedding in August. You're about to be sworn in as a knight of the First Crusade. Your sword is polished, your cross is sewn to your tunic, and you're about to make a holy vow that, spoiler alert, you're going to seriously regret. Your boots are tight, your future uncertain, and your last good night of sleep? Yeah, that was probably last night. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're kneeling in a chilly stone chapel, lit by flickering candles. The priest's voice echoes off the vaulted ceiling as he reads from a scroll. You feel the heavy presence of incense in your lungs and the nervous sweat sliding down your back. The symbol of the cross has just been stitched onto your tunic. This is it. You are now a Crusader. They told you it would be glorious. A ticket to heaven. A chance for eternal fame. And yeah, maybe some land if you're lucky. But what they didn't tell you is how none of this comes with a return policy. The vow you just swore, to take up arms and reclaim the Holy Land, can only be undone by death or pilgrimage. You might have thought this would be a one-summer trip with some sword swinging and choir music. Instead, it's going to be years. And most of them, let's be honest, are going to suck. Your fellow knights clap your back and raise goblets. It feels like celebration. There's roasted meat on the table, and someone's playing a lyre badly in the corner. But your guts are in knots. You're not sure if it's nerves or the spiced goat stew. Tomorrow you march. You'll leave behind your small estate, your aging mother, and the only bed you've ever fit in comfortably. Your squire's already packed your gear. A sword too heavy for finesse, a helmet that muffles all sound, and a cloak that smells suspiciously like wet dog. Historians still argue whether most knights truly went for faith or fortune. But you were mostly peer-pressured. Back in your manor, you glance around. Your bed, your hound, your window that looks out over the hills. It all feels like it's already in the past. Your younger brother, clearly jealous, watches you pack with folded arms. He thinks you're going off to win treasure. You don't have the heart to tell him that most Crusaders come back broke, if they come back at all. You remember the bishop's words from earlier. To walk the road of the righteous is to accept pain in God's name. He didn't mention you might also have to drink horse blood to stay hydrated. Outside, a group of townspeople has gathered to wave you off. Some cheer, some cry. A few just look confused. They've heard rumors of sandstorms, infidel archers, and camel spiders the size of cats. They might not know exactly where you're going, but they all know you're probably not coming back. As you mount your horse, a noble beast with a habit of farting dramatically during quiet moments, your armor clinks loudly. It's custom fit, but fit is a generous term. Your knees already feel bruised, and you haven't even left the gates. You ride at the front of a procession that stretches down the winding hill, hundreds of men on horseback, foot soldiers carrying banners, and oxen pulling wagons stacked with supplies. Somewhere in there, a rooster is loudly objecting to its travel assignment. Behind you, the sun rises. Before you, a long, perilous journey full of blood, blisters, and very questionable drinking water. You adjust your helmet and try to stay optimistic. Maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe the Holy Land will welcome you with open arms and perfect weather. But deep down, in the pit of your chainmail chafed soul, you But deep down in the pit of your chainmail chafed soul, you already know. You've made a terrible, terrible mistake. The road stretches ahead like an endless brown ribbon, winding through fields and forests that blur into each other after the first few days. You've barely crossed the border of your own kingdom, and already you're wondering how your saddle sores have become such a personal vendetta. Your thighs feel like they're being slow-cooked inside an iron drum, and your back screams every time the horse stumbles over a rut. You miss your bed, you miss privacy, and you definitely miss not smelling like damp wool and boiled onions. The truth hits you on day 3. The Crusades aren't a heroic march into glory. They're a long, sweaty caravan of complaints, blisters, and relentless marching. Your companions have started assigning nicknames to the worst parts of the trail. There's Blister Hill, Swamp of Soggy Boots, and your personal favorite, that place where Gerald threw up from cheese alone. You start to envy the oxen. They get to move slower and no one expects them to hold a sword. Every morning begins the same. An overly enthusiastic priest shouting prayers over barely awake soldiers, followed by the smell of burnt oats and regret. Breakfast? If you're lucky, it's stale bread. If you're unlucky, it's stale bread that's been stepped on. The only beverage is wine that tastes like vinegar and somehow gives you a headache before sunrise. One night, Sir Aldrich, you think, has already turned back. He twisted his ankle on a loose cobblestone and declared it divine punishment. You pretend to mock him with the others, but secretly you think he's the wisest of the bunch. You've started realizing how little this crusade was planned. There are no real maps, just vague drawings and someone's cousin heard from a monk level directions. Half the knights disagree on which way to Jerusalem. One guy, a self-proclaimed navigator, keeps pointing to the sun dramatically and muttering things like, "That way, feels right." Historians still argue whether the Crusaders had any cohesive strategy at all, or if they just bumbled toward the east like heavily armed tourists. From what you're seeing, it's definitely the latter. Your armor's already rusting from your own sweat, and your squire keeps accidentally forgetting to clean it. You suspect he's punishing you for making him sleep beside the livestock wagon. Oh, and the livestock? They're getting crankier too. One goat bit your boot this morning and refused to let go until you offered it half a fig. By day 8, your group stumbles into a village. You're told it's a Christian town, so there's hope for food and shelter. The villagers seem alarmed. Turns out a horde of armed men clanging into town chanting hymns isn't always the welcome parade they expect. Still, they offer some barley stew and hard cheese. You try not to think about what the chewy bits might be. One of your fellow knights insists it's just turnip. You think he's lying. Night falls, and you're sleeping on the floor of a barn beside 3 chickens and a man who snores like a drowning bear. Your knees ache. You miss pillows. You miss dignity. As you lie there, staring at the flickering shadows cast by a dying lantern, you wonder again why you're here. You were promised spiritual rewards, a guaranteed place in heaven. But so far it just feels like purgatory with splinters. Your eyes finally drift closed, just as someone loudly steps on a rake outside and lets out a string of curses impressive enough to wake the cows. Welcome to your first week of the crusade, only several thousand miles to go. You wake up feeling like you've aged 20 years. Your back is stiff, your mouth is dry, and your face is still covered in the faint impression of barn straw. Somewhere nearby, a rooster screams at the rising sun like it personally offended him. Today's promise? More walking, more sweating, and a lovely breakfast of slightly damp bread and curdled goat milk. The milk sours faster than your mood. Your armor clinks with every movement, drawing looks of annoyance from the foot soldiers beside you. They walk in tattered sandals and wool tunics while you stomp around in 30 pounds of iron pretending it's comfortable. Your noble knight aura? Dented, quite literally. Still, the day begins. You ride, or rather bounce, on your sore horse. The countryside rolls by, some fields, some ruins, and plenty of dirt. So much dirt. Dust sticks to your lips, your skin, even your teeth. You grit them, and it crunches. You pass another village, this one not so friendly. The people here glare from doorways, muttering in a dialect no one in your group understands. Some toss stale cabbage leaves. You're not sure if that's meant as a gift or an insult. Either way, you don't eat it. By midday, the sun is high and the air hangs like wet cloth. You pull at your helmet strap. It's soaked. Everything is soaked. You'd trade half your horse's mane for a breeze. And then comes the worst part of the morning, the bathroom situation. There are no facilities, no latrines, just some bushes and a wildly unhelpful tree. You stumble behind a hill with a half-dozen others and pretend no one is making eye contact. To clean up? A rough cloth. Or if you're lucky, a communal sponge. Yeah, one sponge, shared, among strangers. To be clear, yes, the Romans used sponges on a stick too. But you somehow thought the medieval period would have evolved. Historians still argue whether sponges were replaced by moss, leaves, or just pure shame. Either way, you miss your chamber pot. After the awkward ritual is done, you mount up again. Your thighs scream. Your inner armor has rubbed so much you could swear your legs are being sanded. The road winds through forest now, and the bugs are unrelenting. Flies circle your face like tiny buzzing demons. One knight attempts to swing at them with his helmet plume. He only succeeds in smacking himself. You all share a laugh. It's the first one in hours, maybe days. Then, just as the forest gives way to a clearing, it happens. Rain. But not a refreshing sprinkle. This is sideways, thunder-filled, merciless rain. Your cloak clings to you like a wet towel that hates you. Your armor fills with water. The inside of your boots become tiny puddles. Your squire tries to wring out your tunic mid-march and earns a face full of muddy splash for his efforts. You don't even apologize. You're too cold to care. The wagons are now stuck in muck. Horses slip. One ox refuses to move. It plants its hooves and glares at the universe. By nightfall, the rain has slowed to a drizzle. The camp is set up in silence. There's no firewood, so you all sit damp and shivering under soggy tarps. Dinner is a mush of boiled barley and regret. You try to sleep. You fail. The cold gnaws at your bones. The wind whispers things like, "You could have been home right now eating pie." Your neighbor in the tent mutters something about fleas. You realize that your leg is itching. Not just itching, crawling. You slap the blanket. A tiny black speck jumps. You miss. It laughs at you, probably. You stare at the damp canvas ceiling, exhausted and itchy, thinking to yourself, so this is how nights live? You rise to a sky that's already gray with menace. The mud beneath your feet makes an audible squelch as you move. Your boots, still damp from last night, offer no comfort, only a soggy, sucking reminder that nothing in this holy war will ever truly dry. Today's mission? March. Again. But this time you're moving through terrain with fewer trees and more open plains, where the sun returns with a vengeance, and there's nowhere to hide from its glare. Your horse is as miserable as you are, flicking its tail with irritated sighs. You're not sure if it hates the weather or you're singing. Probably both. The knights around you have started inventing songs to pass the time, mostly vulgar, mostly off-key, and all involving something about lice. Because yes, lice are a thing now. They're in your shirt, your hair, your underlayers. You scratch without shame. Everyone does. Even your commander, Sir Roland the Pious, was spotted furiously rubbing his armpit with a stick. That image haunts you. The road dips into a shallow valley and the stench hits first. It's the smell of a caravan that's lost its rhythm. Bodies unbathed, meat gone sour, and animal waste baked under the sun. You try breathing through your mouth, it helps. A little. You stop briefly near a creek. At least, they say it's a creek. You're not sure if it's water or just slightly wet dirt. Either way, the men fill their flasks, and you're warned not to look too closely at what's floating in it. One soldier whispers that a group ahead had to boil their boots for food. You laugh. He doesn't. You're no longer sure it was a joke. Lunch is predictable. Hard bread and dried meat so tough you have to chew it like you're taming it. One knight breaks a tooth. He insists it adds character. You nod solemnly while secretly re-evaluating your own bite force. As you continue, a few knights break off to scout ahead. When they return, it's with news no one wants to hear. There's a fork in the road. One leads to a well, maybe. The other is shorter, but more dangerous. Of course, your leaders vote for the shortcut. Of course they do. You descend into a narrow gorge. The sun disappears behind rock walls and everything feels tighter. Your horse gets jittery. You try to hum to calm yourself. It doesn't help. Suddenly, shouts erupt from the front. Chaos follows. The ambush is swift and disorienting. Arrows rain from above. Your shield is up, but you're mostly praying. Screams echo off the canyon walls. Human, horse, and something in between. You try to move forward, but the passage is jammed. Men are slipping on loose gravel, falling under hooves, tripping over corpses. You draw your sword. It feels heavy, awkward. Your hands are slick with sweat. Or maybe blood. You're too shaken to check. After what feels like hours but is probably minutes, the skirmish ends. Several knights are dead. Some are missing. No one knows who the attackers were. Some think bandits, others suspect local resistance. Historians still argue whether local ambushes like this were organized military resistance or just desperate villagers trying to protect their land. You don't care. You're just trying not to throw up. You press on, shaken. The well, when you reach it, is dry. You stare into the pit and feel a metaphor forming. Camp is made in silence that night. Dinner tastes like defeat. No one sings. One man sobs quietly under his blanket. No one interrupts. As you lie back on your rucksack, the stars above feel oddly distant. You wonder what your family is doing right now. Whether your land still belongs to you? Whether your squire will finally stop snoring? Probably not. You're not sure what wakes you first. The smell, the shouting, or the donkey scream. It all blends together in a beautiful nightmare symphony that means only one thing. Another day of glorious suffering. Your body aches from yesterday's ambush, and your sword arm feels like it has been replaced with overcooked bread. You stretch slowly, and something in your back makes a noise like a wooden door creaking open in a haunted monastery. You roll over and immediately regret it. Your shoulder lands in something soft and squishy. You pray it's moss. It's not moss. Welcome to the Crusades. Today's biggest concern: water. Again. You've had more conversations about water in the last week than you've ever had in your entire life. And now it's not just scarcity, it's desperation. The creek is miles behind, and the well you fought for was a dry hole full of regret and one dead frog. The sun's already punching down from above, and your armor is doing an excellent job of cooking you from the inside out. The padded gambeson beneath the chainmail has become a sponge of sweat, trapping every scent your body could possibly produce. At this point, your own armpits might qualify as weapons. The leaders call a halt near a large dusty mound. You all gather around a pitiful trickle of water flowing between rocks. The stronger men shove their way forward. The weaker ones wait, and some faint while waiting. You get your turn eventually. You kneel, cup your hands, and drink. The water tastes like dirt and regret with a hint of goat hoof. Still, you drink again. Historians still argue whether Crusaders actually suffered this level of dehydration daily, or if chronic water loss was more seasonal. But your parched throat says this is not theory, it's personal. One knight gets bold and drinks straight from the hoofprint of a horse. No one judges him. In fact, a few others follow. The squire, yours, ever the optimist, tries to boil a stew using rainwater collected in a helmet. The result is a grayish soup that smells like boiled leather. It might actually be boiled leather. As you eat it, slowly, chewing as though you're gnawing through a curtain, you realize that you're no longer shocked, no longer gagging, just accepting. That's the thing no one tells you about this holy mission. You don't just lose comfort, you lose your standards. You once cringed at stale bread. Now you cherish bread that doesn't crumble into worms. You once gagged at the thought of drinking wine from a rusty cup. Now you'll sip from anything that doesn't bite back. A fellow knight attempts to start a conversation about scripture, but his lips are cracked and bleeding, and it's hard to focus on theology when your tongue feels like a dried fig. The conversation ends quickly when someone starts vomiting nearby. No one even turns their head anymore. That night, the wind picks up. It's dry, sharp, and kicks sand into everything. You wrap a cloth around your nose, trying not to breathe in grit. Your eyes water. A gust knocks over a supply crate. Another sends a tent flapping violently into the darkness like a startled bat. You try to sleep anyway. You can't. Not really. Your body dozes in moments, little gasps of unconsciousness between spasms of discomfort. You think you dream, but the dreams are just replays of waking misery, with slightly better lighting. At some point during the night, a man screams. Everyone tenses, ready for another attack. It's not an attack, it's just Martin. Again. He got a beetle in his boot. He's very dramatic. The wind dies down by dawn, but the cold remains. You wrap yourself in whatever's dry, which is nothing, and stare into the pale, miserable sunrise. You haven't had a real bath in 2 weeks. Your squire, who once offered to polish your boots daily, now just shrugs at the sight of you. You're both devolving. One of the elder knights begins loudly reminiscing about his estate back home. Fresh apples, soft beds, baths drawn by servants, a wife who didn't snore. You hate him a little. You try to picture home too. The way your dog used to circle 3 times before sleeping. The way the bread oven smelled in the morning. The creek where you used to fish barefoot as a boy. For a moment you feel tears sting the corners of your eyes. Then you remember the communal sponge. Nope. No crying. Only marching. You start marching before the sun fully rises because apparently that's the only time it's not trying to kill you. The air is cool for about 10 glorious minutes. Then, right on cue, the heat slides in again like a damp, invisible blanket. You trudge onward, your boots squelching with yesterday's sweat and regret. Your horse plods beside you, eyeing the horizon like it's considering deserting. You don't blame it. You're told the next city, if you can call it that, is a few days away. It's supposedly friendly, or at least not openly hostile. You're not optimistic. The last friendly town threw rocks and shouted something about blaspheming tin cans. The pace today is brutal. Fewer breaks, fewer songs, and way more silence. You've noticed that when people go quiet on a long journey, it's not peace, it's weariness. They've run out of complaints. Or maybe their throats are just too dry. You share some dried figs with your squire. They taste like dusty raisins, but you chew them like they're candied fruit from a royal banquet. Around noon, a scout returns with news that makes everyone groan. Another detour. The main road is blocked. Some kind of landslide or enemy presence, which is code for no one wants to go there. So now you're taking the scenic route through a rocky ravine that looks like it was designed by someone who hates knees. The horses struggle on the uneven ground. One slips and nearly crushes a soldier. Another one flat out refuses to move until bribed with a crust of bread and a gentle song. It's the first time you've seen a warhorse respond to lullabies. You climb, slowly, awkwardly, feeling every step in your calves and your soul. The sun's now directly overhead. Your helmet turns into a furnace. The inside of your mouth feels like it's been vacuumed clean. At a bend in the path, you spot a group of locals, herders probably, watching you from a distance. Their expressions aren't angry, but they're definitely not welcoming. You wave, half-heartedly. They do not wave back. Historians still argue whether locals during the Crusades helped or hindered the foreign armies. The truth? They probably just wanted everyone to go home and stop trampling their fields. You reach a flat plateau by late afternoon and set up a temporary camp. It's more rocks than grass, but at least it's flat. The wagons groan to a halt, and someone immediately collapses under a tarp. You're too tired to eat, too sore to care. You just lie down beside your pack, ignoring the pebbles digging into your ribs. Your squire mutters something about checking for scorpions. You mutter something back that may or may not have been in your native language. But of course, rest is never simple. An hour in, the buzzing starts. Not bees, not flies, mosquitoes. You slap at your arms, legs, neck. They're everywhere. You try covering up, but the cloth just makes you hotter. One knight starts yelling and flailing like he's being exorcised. Another just sits still and cries. Dinner is served, some kind of lentil mush and flatbread. It's not terrible, which makes you suspicious. Your squire says it came from the bottom of the supply cart and that it's aged. You stop chewing mid-bite. You think about sneaking off to the creek to wash your face, but it's now just a muddy trickle. A dead lizard floats past. You take that as a sign. Instead, you rinse your hands with wine. It's wasteful, but it smells better than you do. You settle down under the stars again, your bedroll lumpy and half covered in ants. Your last thought before sleep is, this was supposed to be glorious. But the only thing glorious tonight is the brief breeze that finds its way into your armor. You whisper a thank you to the wind. It doesn't answer. The morning dew is a cruel joke. It makes everything just damp enough to be unpleasant. Your blanket, your boots, your underclothes, but offers no real coolness, no refreshing relief. You wake up with your cheeks stuck to your own armor. That's a new low. Your squire is already up, swatting at invisible insects and mumbling curses you didn't know he knew. Someone's trying to start a fire with wet kindling, which smells like smoky disappointment. A rooster crows in the distance. Where did it even come from? There are no chickens here. Is the rooster hallucinating? Are you? You stretch, or try to. Your back cracks like dry kindling. You feel older than your grandfather ever looked, and your joints make a soft, sticky popping sound that suggests your body is slowly turning into glue. Breakfast is hardtack and the last of the fig mush. You chew thoughtfully while watching someone chase a runaway goat. The goat wins. Then you're off again, like a very sad parade. The road narrows, hemmed in by steep rock walls. It feels like walking through the throat of some giant ancient beast. The sun peers over the ridge, a little too smug for your liking. As the day drags on, you spot something that makes your heart sink. A castle. Not the friendly, storybook kind. This one looks like it was drawn by a child who just discovered what spikes are. You're told it's a Crusader outpost. Friendly. But friendly is relative, isn't it? The guards eye you as if measuring your value in salt and silver. One even mutters something about extra mouths. Still, you're allowed inside. And for a moment you understand what relief feels like. The walls offer shade. Real water flows from a stone trough. You splash your face, nearly weeping. You're herded into a courtyard with other knights and soldiers. Some are sunburned to the point of looking boiled. Others are covered in bandages that smell lived in. One man tells you stories over lunch, lentils again, about how he lost 3 toes to frostbite in the mountains. You blink. There are mountains? You ask, dumbfounded. He just laughs until he coughs. You meet a monk who insists that what you're doing is sacred work. He says this while trying to sell you a relic, the knuckle bone of St. Julian. It's definitely a chicken bone. You don't say anything. Historians still argue whether religious fervor or personal gain motivated most crusaders. The answer, like most things, is probably yes. You spend the afternoon pretending to help repair the outer wall. Mostly you hold things and nod. Your squire fakes a limp to get out of work. You make a mental note to try that next time. A knight from Normandy offers you fermented mare's milk. You drink out of politeness. It tastes like cheese that went to war and lost. As night falls, the castle gates are shut with a clang that echoes too long. Inside, people huddle near fires, trading gossip and stories of battles you suspect never happened. You're given a cot in a communal hall. It smells like mold and feet, but it's off the ground, and that's enough to make it luxurious. Before sleep, you try to pray, but you don't know what for anymore. Glory? Survival? A bath? You fall asleep mid-thought only to be jolted awake by someone screaming about spiders. Not a metaphorical demon. Actual spiders. And just like that, sleep becomes optional again. Morning doesn't so much arrive as sneak up on you and hit you with a rock. The castle walls are still draped in blue-gray shadow, but already someone is shouting for everyone to get up. Something about a caravan under attack. You don't even pretend to be surprised anymore. You stumble into your armor, which has grown heavier overnight somehow. Your squire hands you your sword upside down. He's half asleep, drooling slightly. You decide not to hold it against him. Outside, chaos. Horses scream, not like in the movies, more like rusted hinges tearing apart. Men run past in various states of readiness, from full gear to shirtless with sandals. You join them, because what else can you do? Turns out it's not an attack. It's worse. It's diplomacy. A local emir has sent a representative to discuss terms, which means your commander has to pretend not to hate the man, while the man pretends not to think you're savages. You stand in the sun, sweating in silence, while men in fine linen sit in the shade and sip pomegranate juice. One of them offers you some. You drink it too fast and get brain freeze. Dignity is now just a word other people use. Eventually, the talking ends. Nothing changes. No new peace. Just exchanged pleasantries and forced smiles. Historians still argue whether these exchanges ever meant anything, or if everyone was just stalling until the next ambush. You march out again in the afternoon heat, your destination unclear. The map you're following is more of a suggestion. At one point, someone points to a smudge and calls it a city. The road leads you through scorched fields and abandoned villages, burned-out huts, overturned carts, and once, disturbingly, a children's swing made from human bone. Or maybe it just looked that way. You don't ask. As evening creeps in, you finally stop by a dried-up riverbed. Someone finds an old well nearby and the water is questionable. It smells faintly of eggs and disappointment. You drink it anyway. Dinner is a communal stew. The meat is unidentifiable and chewy in a way that suggests it once ran very fast. Your squire insists it's probably goat. Someone else mutters, or dog. You keep chewing. The conversation turns to battle stories. Everyone has one, and none of them make sense. One knight claims to have killed a man with a chicken. Another says he survived an entire siege by eating only grass and prayer. Someone plays a broken lute. It only has 3 strings and sounds like regret. But it helps you sleep. Until the howling starts. Wolves. Real ones. Not metaphorical. You clutch your sword, hoping they're more interested in horses than you. The wolves don't attack, but sleep never fully returns. You lie there, listening to the night breathe around you and wonder, was this really your destiny? Were you meant to be a half-starved, pomegranate-addled scarecrow with a sword? Quirky tidbit of the day. One knight you met swears his chainmail is cursed. He's been farting nonstop since Antioch. He says it's a punishment from God. Honestly, you believe him. By morning, your feet are covered in blisters again. Your squire offers to lance them. You scream before he even touches them. He takes it as a no. You break camp. The road is calling. But this time it's not even pretending to be friendly. You're back on the road again. At this point, it feels like you never left it. Your boots have molded to your feet like second skin. Soggy, angry second skin. Every step squishes, and you start to suspect trench foot was invented long before anyone had actual trenches. The terrain grows less forgiving. Hills now. Jagged ones that seem to hate you personally. You drag yourself up one slope, panting like a dog in armor, only to find another one waiting smugly on the other side. And of course the sun is at full power again, like it's auditioning for the role of angriest star. Your helmet turns into an oven. You imagine the crusade ends not with a battle but with everyone baked alive in their own metal. Someone starts singing. It's a hymn but off-key. You try to hum along but it turns into a wheeze. Still, it breaks up the monotony, until someone trips over a rock and dislocates their shoulder. March halts while a priest performs a crude relocation using prayer, spit, and alarming confidence. There's talk of reaching a town soon. The name changes every hour. Some say Tyre, others say Tiberias. One guy swears it's heaven. You don't care anymore. Just let it have a roof. But before any town appears, you encounter another roadblock. Literally. A barricade. Local fighters, armed with spears and the kind of frowns that promise paperwork. They shout in a language you don't understand, but you get the vibe. No Crusaders allowed. Your commander negotiates, loudly, then less loudly, then somehow coins appear. Eventually, the barricade vanishes. Welcome to diplomacy, 12th century edition. Yell, bribe, repeat. Historians still argue whether these spontaneous tolls were unofficial taxes or just really creative banditry. Either way, your purse is lighter. When you finally do reach the town, let's go with Tiberias for now. It's not what you imagined. No grand stone walls or bustling markets, just a cluster of tired buildings and suspicious faces. You're directed to a guest house, which is a generous way of saying barn that hasn't collapsed yet. You sleep on hay, which sounds romantic until you realize hay itches. There are bugs. They have attitudes. One of them crawls across your cheek and winks at you. Dinner is actually not terrible. Flatbread, olives, something that might be lentils. You eat like a man possessed. Somewhere in the barn, someone snores with operatic drama. That night, you dream of home. Not the idealized version, the real one. Muddy streets, your mom yelling at chickens, a pie you never got to finish because your brother sat on it. You miss it all. The next morning brings a miracle, a bath. It's just a barrel with tepid water, but still, heaven. You dunk your head and for 5 glorious seconds forget everything. Then the barrel leaks. You emerge soaked, cleaner, but also now missing a sock. How? Nobody knows. You get a few hours of actual rest in the shade of a fig tree listening to the market vendors shout. A man tries to sell you what he insists is holy water. It smells like vinegar and fish. You pass. In the afternoon, the sun decides to remind you who's boss again. You spot mirages. One of them is a tavern with dancing goats. You wave at it. The goat waves back. That's probably fine. Quirky side note. One guy in your unit believes eating figs while marching curses your legs. He refuses to explain. He just stares and mumbles about the figs of Edessa. You don't ask. By evening, you're back on the road, because of course you are. Towns aren't for staying, apparently. Just temporary oases before the next disappointment. You sigh, adjust your belt, and trudge on. That night, you sleep beside a field of thorn bushes. Every turn is a new prick to the thigh. You try not to cry. You fail. Still, as your eyes flutter shut, you remind yourself, at least no one's swinging a mace at your face. Yet, you wake up with a twig in your ear and a beetle crawling over your lip. Congratulations, you're still alive. Not necessarily a victory, but it counts. You peel yourself off the ground like a sticky flapjack and groan. Everything groans back, especially your joints. It's like your body is now operated by rusty pulleys. The march resumes before the sun even fully shows its face. You shuffle into formation like a half-awake duck in chainmail. One guy's helmet is on backwards. No one corrects him. There are no rules anymore. You pass more settlements, some no more than 5 huts, and a goat. Sometimes the goat looks better fed than you. You're starting to suspect this is all some elaborate punishment dreamed up by a sleep-deprived monk with a grudge against joy. Then comes the river. It looks beautiful. Cool, flowing, clear, everything you're not. You run to it, dunk your head, splash like a toddler. For a moment, it's glorious. Then a commander yells something about blessed waters and respect. You freeze mid-splash. Another knight is caught washing his socks in the river and now has to do penance by walking the rest of the day barefoot. His feet look like overcooked sausages. The terrain changes again, flat and open but dry. Dust kicks up with every step. Your mouth tastes like parchment. You try not to breathe, which works until you faint a little. Then you spot it. Walls on the horizon. A real city this time, not a hallucination. Acre, the infamous stronghold by the sea, where the Crusader banners fly and the ships bob in the harbor like hopeful punctuation marks. You enter with a mixed sense of awe and irritation. You've heard so much about Acre. It's supposed to be a crown jewel. But once inside, it smells like dead fish and ambition. Streets are clogged. every corner echoing with shouting in half a dozen languages. There's armor clanging, coins jingling, and someone playing a flute so badly it might be considered a war crime. You're housed in a cramped barracks where the beds are made of wood and bad decisions. The guy beside you snores like a dying horse. There's no privacy. You change behind a curtain held up by two tired squires who silently judge your sock holes. But Acre isn't just noise and discomfort. It's also where the crusade gets real. Orders are shouted, plans are drawn in sand with pointy sticks, and commanders argue over routes, provisions, and whose cousin gets to lead the cavalry. Mainstream historical fact break. Acre became one of the key bases for Crusader operations after it was captured in 1191 during the Third Crusade. It wasn't just a stronghold. It was a bustling, chaotic, multicultural hub, sort of like a medieval Times Square with more swords and fewer pretzels. You get a glimpse of the port. Massive ships creak in the water, their sails fluttering in the salt wind. Men load crates, some labeled with crosses, others with strange symbols. You help haul one, and something inside squawks. You don't ask. You spend a few days here and you even dare to relax. There's food, actual meals with spices. You're given a tunic that doesn't smell like mildew. A local sells you a scarf dyed with crushed beetles, which is both gross and oddly beautiful. But even here, comfort is temporary. You hear whispers of what lies ahead. Jerusalem. The city everyone's talking about, everyone's walking toward, everyone's supposedly going to die near. And there's the heat. It's different here. Not just hot, but insistent. It pushes against you, climbs inside your armor, and roasts you from within. One knight passes out while polishing his sword. You don't laugh. Much. Fringe fact detour. Some crusaders genuinely believed they could walk into Jerusalem and the walls would just collapse out of sheer holiness, like a biblical auto-unlock. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were delusion, propaganda, or just extreme wishful thinking. Your own thoughts get quieter. There's a strange calm here, despite everything. You're officially in the desert now. Not the some sand and a cactus kind, but the real deal. Endless, blinding, brain-melting desert. The sun is no longer a source of warmth. It's a personal vendetta in the sky, and you're its favorite target. You trudge forward, armor baking your body like a meat pie left on a windowsill. Sweat pools in your boots, your mouth is so dry you'd trade a toe for a grape, and your lips feel like they've been gently exfoliated with gravel. The road to Jerusalem isn't lined with glory. It's littered with dead camels, splintered wheels, and broken dreams. Occasionally you pass a half-dug grave with something suspiciously foot-shaped sticking out. You don't ask. Your comrades aren't faring better. One knight starts talking to his sword like it's his mother. Another tries to cook a rock, convinced it's a potato. The chaplain mutters prayers on loop like a broken holy jukebox. Then the bandits show up. Of course, they descend like angry bees in the night, shouting things in languages you don't recognize, flashing curved blades and wild eyes. You reach for your sword but realize your arm is asleep from carrying your shield all day. Chaos, screams, steel on steel. Someone throws a pot. Another tries to block with a loaf of bread. In the end, you survive, mostly thanks to hiding under a mule and pretending to be dead. Not exactly heroic, but effective. At dawn, you emerge with a black eye, missing a boot, and the growing realization that your heroic narrative might just be a series of unfortunate pratfalls. Mainstream fact. Bandit attacks were a common hazard for crusaders, especially during long stretches between strongholds. With supply lines thin and terrain unfamiliar, they were easy targets for desert raiders or opportunistic locals. A few days later, you stumble across a well. Actual water, cold and clean and not just for looking at. You drink like a man possessed, sloshing it into your mouth, your face, your helmet. A passing monk tuts at you for wasting holy resources. You offer him a wet hug in return. That night you camp beneath a starlit sky so wide it looks like it could swallow you whole. Someone plays a flute, badly. Again. But it's oddly comforting now. You're too tired to care if he's summoning demons with those notes. You think about Jerusalem. So close now you can practically smell the incense. You wonder if it'll be worth it. if the holy city will live up to its name, or if it's just another place with bad plumbing and too many stairs. Quirky tidbit. One Crusader chronicler claimed he saw a lizard in the desert that could whistle in Latin. No one's sure if he was exaggerating or just extremely dehydrated. Historians still argue whether such entries were metaphorical, mistaken, or just the medieval version of trolling. The mood in the camp shifts. Tents are arranged tighter, supplies are rationed more carefully, leaders whisper under cloaks. The big push is coming. You can feel it in your bones, and not just because you slept on a rock shaped like a triangle. The bishop holds a service before bed, blessing your weapons, your journey, and strangely, your armpits. You don't ask. You're just grateful for the moment of ritual, for the pause before the plunge. You lie on your back, staring at the stars again. Somewhere out there is home, cool forests, fresh bread, soft beds. And here you are, with sand in your pants and a prayer in your throat. You think, maybe tomorrow, maybe Jerusalem. And then the guy next to you snores so loud you think it's a trumpet. By now, Jerusalem doesn't feel like a sacred destination. It feels like a final boss battle. The city finally crests the horizon, its golden dome shimmering like a mirage, or an overambitious promise. You shuffle toward it, one of thousands, each of you wrapped in metal, dirt, and a cocktail of exhaustion and dread. The air is thick with anticipation and, unfortunately, the scent of thousands of unwashed soldiers. Holy indeed. The walls of Jerusalem loom, ancient and defiant. You half expect them to speak, to mock you for your efforts. Really? You came all this way in chainmail just to get yeeted by a boiling pot of oil? The siege begins, and immediately it's a hot mess. Literally. The defenders fling down not only rocks and arrows but also boiling oil, animal guts, and something suspiciously like week-old stew. You duck behind a wooden tower that immediately bursts into flames. Classic. You're ordered to dig a trench. With what, you ask? Your dignity? Nope. A ladle from the cook's kit. 2 hours later, your hands are blistered, the trench is 2 feet deep, and morale is buried somewhere beneath the pebbles. Mainstream historical fact. During the siege of 1099, Crusaders faced scorching heat and dwindling supplies, forcing them to drink horse blood and eat leather. Boiling oil was indeed used as a defensive weapon by those inside the city. Somehow, amid the chaos, a goat makes it into camp. No one knows where it came from, but it becomes your unofficial mascot. Someone names it Geoffrey the Siege Goat. He headbutts a knight and becomes a legend. Food runs low. Again, you find yourself eyeing a boot with curiosity. It's your own boot. That's how far it's come. The bishop suggests fasting for holiness. You suspect it's just a fancy way to say, there's no dinner. A ramshackle siege tower finally touches the wall. You're ordered up. As you climb, arrows whistle past and one strikes the guy ahead of you. He falls backward into your arms, which sounds romantic until he bleeds on your face. You make it to the wall, raise your sword, and shout something vaguely biblical, probably just the word Jerusalem really loudly, and then immediately trip on a stone and roll into the courtyard like a stray wheel of cheese. You're in. Kind of. Now begins the real horror. Streets choked with smoke, chaos, and shouts in every language you've never studied. The whole thing feels like a terrible festival where everyone forgot the point. Quirky tidbit. One Crusader reportedly scaled the walls with a ladder, fell off, and declared himself divinely protected, until a stray chicken pecked his head and he fell again. Historians still argue whether this tale was allegory or just peak medieval slapstick. Hours turn into a blur. You swing your sword more out of habit than conviction. You lose a shoe. Again, your shield catches fire. You use it to light a torch. Adapt or perish, you suppose. Eventually, a trumpet blares. The city is yours. You sit down on the nearest step, remove your helmet, and find a dead pigeon inside. No explanation. Just pigeon. You don't even flinch. You wander through the city, dazed. The Holy Land smells like blood, incense, and something else. Maybe burnt stew. You find a church and collapse in its shade, your sword laid across your lap like a sleeping dog. Someone offers you a sip of wine. It's awful. You drink every drop. Later that night, the bishop gives a long-winded speech about triumph, salvation, and eternal reward. You nod politely while trying to pick baked-on blood off your gauntlets. You think, was it worth it? Then you see Geoffrey the Siege Goat lounging on a broken column like a Roman emperor. And somehow that's enough for now. Morning creeps in quietly, almost sheepishly, as if even the sun feels awkward about what went down last night. You wake up stiff and sore, your armor now mostly decorative soot and rust, and your body one big cramp pretending to be a person. You shift on the cold stone floor of the church you passed out in, half sanctuary, half makeshift barracks. There's a knight snoring loudly behind you and someone mumbling in Latin, either praying or reciting last night's dinner ingredients. Could go either way. Outside, Jerusalem glows in the golden haze of dawn, but you don't feel victorious. You feel used, as if you were promised divine glory but got a sunburn and PTSD instead. You step outside and trip on a leg, not attached. You sigh and mutter, "Good morning, Holy City." It's cleanup day, no banners flapping triumphantly, just tired men dragging corpses, looters clanking with stolen brass, and priests trying to make this look spiritually meaningful. You're handed a broom. You thought you'd be handed salvation. Mainstream historical fact. After the capture of Jerusalem in 1099, the Crusaders carried out a massacre that shocked even their contemporaries. Chroniclers wrote of knee-deep blood in the streets, though modern historians argue whether that was poetic license or grim reality. You're told to guard a small granary. Exciting. You do so by leaning on your spear and eating dry lentils that taste like regret. Later, a cleric explains how this victory ensures your place in heaven. You ask if heaven has beds. He says yes. You ask if heaven has shoes. He hesitates. That night, someone starts singing. It's an old song, something about the Rhine River and home. You don't join in, but you hum a little, quietly, just enough for Geoffrey the Siege Goat to nuzzle your elbow. Quirky tidbit. Some Crusaders carved tiny crosses into their armor, claiming it made them immune to demons. Others just did it to cover the dents. Historians still argue which was more effective. You're summoned to a gathering at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You follow the trail of half-asleep warriors and candlelight. Inside, the bishop declares this the fulfillment of God's will. You notice he's wearing fresh robes and suspiciously polished shoes. He blesses the army. You barely hear him. Your mind drifts to your village, your field, your dog, that one tree stump you always stubbed your toe on. A knight whispers to you, "Do you feel holy?" You shake your head. You feel hungry. A priest passes out communion. It tastes like cardboard and chalk, but everyone accepts it like it's caviar. You do too. Later, you catch your reflection in a broken sword. You barely recognize yourself. Your beard is full of ash, your skin is leathered, and your eyes look ancient. You're 23. You sleep under the stars that night, wrapped in a blanket you looted off a corpse that had surprisingly good taste in embroidery. The wind whistles through the stones, almost like a lullaby. You stare up and murmur, "Was this really God's plan?" No answer. Just Geoffrey chewing a map. You wake to the unsettling sensation of something licking your face. It's Geoffrey. Again. He's eaten most of your shoe in the night, but honestly, it's hard to blame him. You'd have eaten your shoe too if it was roasted and served with even a hint of garlic. The city smells different now. Less of blood and fire, more of ash and nervous silence. Jerusalem has been liberated, whatever that's supposed to mean. But there are no cheering crowds. The surviving locals stay hidden, and the Crusaders mostly wander the streets like dazed tourists who forgot what they came for. You're assigned to a patrol. The streets wind through crumbling stone alleys, sun-bleached courtyards, and holy sites turned makeshift kitchens. You pass what's supposed to be the Temple of Solomon. Some knight is frying fish on a shield outside it. You don't ask questions anymore. Mainstream historical fact. The Crusaders, once in control of Jerusalem, divided it among themselves. Godfrey of Bouillon famously refused to be called king and instead chose the title Defender of the Holy Sepulchre. Historians still argue whether that was humility or clever politics. Your patrol is mostly you trying not to trip on uneven stones while watching another knight argue with a local merchant about the price of dried dates. You linger near a well and listen to an old woman quietly chant a prayer in Arabic. It's soft and sad and somehow more sacred than anything you've heard from a pulpit. You help her draw water. She doesn't thank you, but she doesn't curse you either. That's probably a win. Later that day, you're called to a meeting. Godfrey speaks about establishing a new Christian kingdom here. Some men cheer. Others snore. You just try to keep Geoffrey from chewing on a relic someone swears is a piece of the true cross. Someone asks about going home. Godfrey says, "When it's safe." You mutter, "When hell freezes." Quirky tidbit. Some Crusaders believed that the city's stones held magical properties. They'd chip off pieces to take home as relics. One unlucky knight tried to smuggle out a whole chunk of the church wall and got flattened by it. Historians still argue whether it was divine judgment or just bad masonry. At sunset, you visit the Mount of Olives. It's quiet, peaceful even. You sit on a warm rock and let the breeze carry away the grime of battle and the ache in your bones. You think of the people buried here, saints and sinners alike, and wonder if they're watching. You whisper, "Would you do it all again?" No answer, just the faint sound of goats clinking somewhere downhill. Back in the city, a new order is forming. Some men are told to stay. Others are promised ships soon. The word soon has lost all meaning. You volunteer for bread duty. Not because you're pious, because the ovens are warm. That night someone sings again. This time, others join. A rough harmony floats through the broken stone halls and over the rooftops. You hum along again, softer this time. Maybe you think this place can be more than a battlefield someday. Maybe not. Either way, you have bread in your pocket and Geoffrey for company. That counts for something. You wake up one morning and, for once, nothing hurts. Well, not much. Your left foot still feels like it's been stepped on by an ox wearing chainmail, but compared to before, it's practically spa day. Jerusalem has settled into an awkward kind of rhythm. There's a new hierarchy now. Godfrey at the top, nobles next, and then you, somewhere between useful idiot and bread mule. But hey, at least you know how to dodge falling stones and fake Latin blessings with flair now. You start your day with water hauling duty. Again, you carry buckets past the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, nodding to a monk who spent 3 days trying to rebuild a collapsed arch with prayer and rope. He waves at you with a hand completely wrapped in bandages. Mainstream historical fact. The city's infrastructure after the siege was in ruins. Crusaders had to rebuild essential systems, water, food storage, basic shelter, all while fighting off diseases and the occasional Saracen counterattack. Historians still argue whether the Crusaders ever truly settled Jerusalem or just squatted in it until the next war. Later, you're assigned to stand watch at the city gate. It's mostly boring, but every now and then, a merchant caravan arrives. You see silks, spices, and even a few wary-eyed pilgrims who somehow missed the part where Jerusalem became a war zone. A young woman approaches with a basket of herbs. You let her through and she hands you a sprig of mint. You don't know if it's a thank you, a bribe, or just the medieval version of small talk. Still, you tuck it behind your ear. Geoffrey sneezes on it. By now, your armor smells like a cheese cave. You find a stream just outside the city and decide it's time for a wash. The water is cold and clear, and for a brief moment you feel human again. Then a bee stings you on the butt and you remember, this is your life now. Quirky tidbit. Some Crusaders believed bees were holy creatures and refused to swat them, even mid-sting. A bishop once gave a sermon with a bee clinging to his nose. Historians still argue whether it was reverence or just poor hygiene. You spend the afternoon carving shapes into your shield with a rock, not because it means anything, just because it's something to do. Geoffrey chews on the corner and sneezes again. As dusk settles, you climb a watchtower. The city below glows orange in the fading light. Smoke curls from cook fires. Bells ring somewhere. You spot children playing near the ruins of an old bathhouse. You're not sure who they belong to, but they're laughing, and that counts. Your captain joins you with a bottle of something that probably started life as wine. He passes it over, says nothing, and you both sip in silence. "You ever think about going home?" he asks. You pause and say, "Sometimes." "Me too," he says. "But then I remember, this was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime." You both laugh. It's not bitter, just tired. There's talk that some of you will be allowed to leave soon. The sea is calmer now. Ships are waiting. But you're not sure if you're ready to return to muddy farms and taxes and that one neighbor who always complained about your dog. What would you even say? "Hi, I murdered 5 people for a holy rock. How's your wheat harvest?" You lie back on the stone floor of the tower and stare at the stars. You trace patterns in the sky with your finger. A sword, a cross, a loaf of bread. Tomorrow you'll decide whether to stay. Tonight you'll just breathe. And now, the city fades behind you, just a shimmer of candlelight and ancient stone. The echo of boots on cobblestone grows quieter with every step, dissolving into the soft hush of evening wind. You've trudged through blood, fire, prayers, and goat drool, and somehow you're still standing. The stars above stretch wide, blinking like distant campfires waiting for you. You feel the cool night air settle gently on your face, wrapping around your tired limbs like a wool blanket, worn and familiar. Your breath slows, the weight of your armor finally lifting, metaphorically and literally. In this moment, there's no more marching, no more shouting, no relics to chase or banners to wave, just silence, and a distant memory of home. Maybe it's a warm kitchen, or the way the rain sounded on your roof, or someone's laugh you haven't heard in years. Let those memories drift closer. Let them curl around you, soft as morning fog, light as dust on old wood. Let your bones sink deeper into the mattress, your fingers go still, your eyelids flutter, heavy now. It's okay to rest. You've survived the Crusades, somehow. And even if you don't know what tomorrow brings, tonight you're safe, you're warm, you're here. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. Let sleep take over now, you've earned it. End of script. Sweet dreams.